Welcome to Bluegrass Brooklyn, our podcast all about the music we love, straight from the Bluegrass borough of Brooklyn, New York.
Upon a hillside, where the pines sing in the wind, where my father lived before me, and his father before him.
Hello, and welcome to this Monday edition of the Bluegrass Brooklyn podcast. I'm your host, Liz Wolfe, and in these editions, we explore topics that are related to and supporting our favorite music, bluegrass. Enjoy the show. Well, hello, and thank you for listening. I am so excited today to have Bob Amos on with me. Bob is a musician who is both a singer and a songwriter and an award-winning IBMA musician, and he's had a lot of great success. He used to play with Front Range. So welcome, Bob. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Liz. It's great to be with you.
Well, let's jump in. I was chatting with everyone before we get on, and we were discussing all the accomplishments you've had in your lifetime. So what would you consider, if you were to say, my biggest accomplishment was, what would you say?
I would say it's a tie between One Beautiful Day, winning the Gospel Recording of the Year at IBMA, tied with my daughter Sarah and I having a #1 song, The Hills That I Call Home, on the Folk Alliance International chart. Those are two things that are high points. That and having a chance when I was with Front Range, the band I was with, as you mentioned, playing at the Ryman Auditorium, that was pretty cool too. So those are a few things.
So let's talk about your musical initiatives with Sarah. That is the most recent thing that you've been working on. That's pretty cool. You get to play and sing with your daughter and have music happening and recordings.
It's wonderful. I've gotten to do a lot of really fun things throughout my career. And I have to say, my favorite thing I've ever done, though, is singing with my daughter. We've always sung together to a certain degree, but once she got out of college, we just started doing it more formally and started recording together. And there is that blood harmony thing that's happening. So the two of us just really sing well together. It's very natural. We don't really have to think about it much. It's almost like we read each other's minds. But it's been a total joy. And we're just going to continue doing that.
Does she ever say, Dad, I don't want to do it that way? I don't know.
Well, she has, it's truly a partnership now. She started singing with me when it was more the Bob Amos band. And then at some point we transitioned in it to it being the Bob and Sarah Amos band, or Bob and Sarah Amos as a duo. And so she definitely has a lot of input. She'll go through my old catalog and pick out older songs that she'd like to sing. So we rearrange them for her. Or a song she says, you haven't done this one in a while. This is a good one. It was actually her idea to bring back Hills That I Call Home and do it as a duet. And so we sing it as a duet all the way through, which is different than the solo verse way that I used to do it with Front Range. But, oh yeah, it's very funny. Actually, it's very entertaining on stage because there is a little bit of the raised eyebrow look at me sometimes and a snarky comment, but really well done. Sarah's very entertaining on stage. She's very funny. And we just work back and forth on stage. So there's a lot of interaction that makes the live shows a lot of fun. But there is something very organically wonderful about it that I just really enjoy. And luckily she does, I don't think there are too many dads out there who have their daughters who want to hang out with their dads at this stage in life. She's in her early 30s now and still be wanting to hang out and sing with me. And she just loves it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. And so it's actually kind of a cool thing because we don't get to hang out with our kids too much at this age. We talk to them or we visit on the phone or whatever, but we see each other all the time through music. And it's a great way for us to bond later on.
Yeah, and another theme that I've had with interviews here are people that were going to festivals as kids.
Yeah.
And so actually I'm just thinking, I've talked to a lot of people who were the kid that was there, but it's the other way around where you were the one having your child and taking your child, I guess, and seeing
Oh, yeah.
the person.
Oh, yeah. Well, any festival that Anne came to, my wife Anne, and she brought the kids with her. So I have a lot of memories of sitting and seeing Sarah sitting on my wife's lap in the front row. And she developed this great talent of being able to fall asleep during a fundraiser. She's probably one of the only people that can fall asleep in front of a banjo. But she said it worked out well it was a good talent to have when she started going to festivals and trying to sleep. And my son, Nate, who lives in Brooklyn, by the way, and he's a very successful musician now in the indie rock world. He has a solo act called This Is Lorelei, and he's getting a lot of attention these days. So, I mean, for both he and Sarah to end up doing things with music, I think they grew up just thinking that was a choice, where a lot of kids have to convince themselves, if they're musicians, that that's something they'd like to do. But, having a dad who was a musician, it was a natural path for them.
Yeah, or they were told that's not a viable way to earn a living.
Right. Well, that's what I mean is that sometimes, like I got when I was going into music, because I was trained and went to school as a geologist and went through graduate school and everything, and worked for 10 years before Front Range had an opportunity. And that came about in 91 when we showcased at IBMA and did really well. And then we got signed by Sugar Hill Records right after that and started getting festival gigs. And then we just took off. So that was my excuse to transition out of my regular job into becoming a full-time musician. So my kids, and what was I could say, no, you can't be a musician.
Right.
That's what I was doing. So I think they just thought it was a normal thing.
Yeah. You also are a teacher, and how I met Bob was at the Silver Bay Wernick Method Jam Camp up in Silver Bay on Lake George, Silver Bay YMCA, which is happening this summer from August 23rd through the 29th. So you are a certified Wernick instructor.
I am. Yeah.
And you've been teaching at that camp for a long time.
Since it started, I'm trying to remember, is this going to be the 12th year? I'm not really sure. I think it is. Something like that. But that's a gorgeous location. I mean, people who go there for the first time can't believe it. It's right on Lake George, and it's a beautiful campus with that Adirondack big auditorium where we have a lot of the things that go on there, and just a beautiful view across the lake at the mountains, and a nice cafeteria and things to do when you're on your off time. You can play tennis or go for a hike or go on the lake or whatever. It's a great camp. It's one of the few camps that I do now, and I always do it because I just love it. And I think anybody who goes there will have a great time, and as well as learning a lot.
So this will be my third time going. The first year I went just because I heard all of those things that you just described it as being. And then the second year we formed a band. And just so that people know that is something you can do, is you can go with a band. I'll briefly explain that for those who may be listening, that the way the Wernick Jam camps work is that there's one guitar, one mandolin, one banjo, one bass player, one fiddle, that they form these guided jams that you do with instructors like Bob, or now myself, because I'm also a certified Wernick instructor. So you get that true bluegrass feeling, not like the jam I went to recently that had 8 guitars and nothing else except for a bass, right? So you really get that true feeling. If you wanted to come as a band, you could do that as long as you had that sort of a configuration and you work together. This year, that's what I'm doing. And then they have 2 levels at the camp. They have level 1, which is for people who are really just learning about the Wernick method. And then level 2, which are people who are somewhat experienced already.
Exactly. And I love the fact that all the students do get broken up. Even if you don't come with your own band, they put you in a group, so it's kind of like a band. So they don't have 5 guitars and 1 mandolin or something. They have one of each instrument, and usually a bass player, and then all the other instruments. And so you get the feeling of a band setup and learning how to balance all the instruments and sing different parts. So it really is an excellent camp in that way. I think even if you're an intermediate or a beginner, doesn't matter. There'll be a place for you. You'll get placed with musicians at the appropriate level and work as an ensemble and learn how to do that effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think people's skill sets really rise from attending this camp. I've had a lot of people who have gone into playing in regular jam groups or bands after coming to the camp because they understand better how to do that effectively.
Yes. And let's not forget that there's many other parts to the camp, one of which is the instrument lessons. How would you describe that?
Well, there's all kinds of things. So there are breakout groups where everybody who wants to study with it, like, comes to see me for guitar, or Pete or Scott Hopkins, the other banjo teacher for that, or Ellen Carlson and Austin Scalzo for fiddle, etc. And so you spend time every day with your instrumental group, and they're learning a little bit more about that particular instrument and how to use it effectively. But then there's harmony singing sessions. I do a lead singing special workshop. I do a songwriting workshop. Scott Hopkins does a music theory one. Ellen will do swing tunes on the fiddle. Do all these specialty things that you can go to in the afternoon. I think the hardest thing is just choosing. There's so many different things. So you can really learn a lot about all aspects of music related to bluegrass, even slightly outside of bluegrass. But then there's plenty of time to jam in the evenings informally as well. But it's kind of an amazing camp when you think about everything that is available to you while you're there. And I would highly recommend that people look into going.
Yeah,
It's a lot of fun as well.
that's for sure.
You do get a chance to have some stage time at this camp too. They'll put you in a band. You don't have to do it, but you can. And you get some experience of what it's like to be on a stage in front of an audience and play.
I also play the bass because I went to a You Should Play the Bass elective with Ira Gitlin.
Yes. And I always tell students, if you want to be really popular and always get invited to jams, learn how to play the bass because there's always a lack of bass players, especially ones that can play well. And you don't have to be amazing. You just have to be solid. And it's a great second skill. If you're already good at one instrument and you want to learn how to play another instrument, bass is a great one because jams always need a bass player.
What is that? What is that? You always need one, but you only need one. What is that?
Well, there is that. Yeah, that's right. Although I have to say, I run a monthly jam up here in the North Country, here up in northern Vermont. And at our last jam, we had 3 bass players. So I put one in control and put him in the middle, and he had an acoustic amp. They were all stand-up basses. And I put the other 2 over on the side, and I gave them instructions. I said, sync in with the center band bass player. He was the loudest. And they did sync in, and I said, keep it simple, 1-5. And it worked great. It was fine. But we had 18 people, so it was good to have those extra basses. So it can work. But yeah, normally we just want one bass player. I think at Silver Bay, we usually end up assigning one bass player per jam group because we'll have what, Liz? Some maybe 15 different groups of people in the intermediate camp, something like that. But it's great. It's a great camp, and you just come home exhausted, but
yes. And the other thing is all of the instructors are excellent that have been there. And you get to rotate with those different folks.
Exactly right. And I think the thing of being one of the teachers and having worked with a lot of these people for many years, I would say that at Silver Bay in that respect is special too, because all the teachers, it's really about being teachers and not just demonstrating if you're a well-known musician for XYZ. It's really about teaching. And I think that that camp really puts a focus on that. I know Pete, for the faculty there, that's of prime importance to him, is that we all are good teachers and we know how to teach.
Well, you bring up a point that I have found at camps, not even camps, but even festivals. Let's say festivals, not camps per se, where they have these breakout sessions you can go and learn from. And there's been quite a few in my lifetime, percentage-wise, where I sneak out the back because all that's happening is the person is just talking. And I've also been to these jam camps where they have these very, very skilled musicians that are leading the jam circle because who doesn't want to go play with, so-and-so person? I don't want to name names. And I'm like, you're not really a very good jam leader. or you're not really a very good teacher. And so,
Well, they need to go get certified by Pete Wernick.
that's right.
And learn how to do it. Well, no, I mean, this is a thing. It really is. This is what I think the genius of this whole movement started by Pete was to teach people how to jam. It's just like people just jam, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But usually what it ends up being is a few people just taking over the jam and learning, just doing their songs, and everybody else is falling into place. But by having a structure and a method and a system by which you can do it, trade songs around, have somebody lead a song, it's great because it makes you a more effective jam leader. And when you go to a jam, then all of a sudden everybody picks up on it and they start doing it too. So it just makes it more fun as well as more effective musically. So it's good all the way around. But I know what you're talking about. And so when I've been at festivals playing or teaching or whatever, there's two kinds of workshops. Sometimes they are more demonstrations, right? So you have somebody who's an amazing guitar player and they're in front of people for 45 minutes, or maybe the three amazing guitar players. They're probably just going to trade songs back and forth and talk a little bit about it and play. And most of the people sitting there, that's what they want to hear, right? But then there are the workshops where you're actually on stage and you're getting people to do something, to teach them something during that time. It's very difficult in just 45 minutes to do that. I know in my breakout sessions at Silver Bay, what I always do with the first one, and for example, in the songwriting one, I can sit and talk about songwriting forever and play songs. So here's one that demonstrates this. I could do that. But what I do in that workshop is I break people into little groups and I talk for about 5 minutes, and then they go off in little groups and they start writing something. I call it just breaking open the door so that they learn not to be afraid of songwriting. I want them to do something. And sometimes they only have a verse or maybe a verse and a chorus. But in that space of less than an hour, by the time we're done, they have written something and they're performing it for the other people in their workshop. So that's an example of how you can actually take a short amount of time and do something constructive where people actually are participating. And some of those people who have attended that one little workshop with me at Silver Bay have gone on to be songwriters. That was their first experience with songwriting. But you have to just break down that door and let them walk in and say, oh, I think I can do this. And so as teachers, what we always want to do is we're basically enablers, right? We want to enable people to do things on their own, but sometimes you have to kind of force them into doing it first. And then they all of a sudden think, oh, this is okay. I can do this. And then they're off and running.
It's that participation that I think is so important.
Yeah. As a teacher and a musician, you're always trying to think, how could I do this better? But it's really difficult as a teacher when you're seeing a group for the first time and in the only time, because you don't really know where they are. And I always tell people, try to come away with one thing that you really have learned well from each lesson, and then practice that before you come back the next day. Find some time to just go over it so you solidify it in your mind. And if you come away with one really good thing that you've learned, that's progression, and that's not a bad goal. Yeah.
Let's switch topics for a moment, because you were referring to that you're in northern Vermont and you had a jam that had 18 people, including 3 bass players, show up.
Yeah.
So you running jams up there?
Yeah, we did. We actually happen to live outside of St. Johnsbury, Vermont, which is way up in the northeastern part of Vermont. But there's a very good arts organization up here called Catamount Arts. You can actually look them up on catamountarts.org that runs all kinds of art-related events, whether it's independent films and art, they have an art gallery, but a lot of musical things. And so I run a couple of different series up here. I have one concert series called Bluegrass Night that's under the Catamount Arts umbrella, where I bring in bands, mostly from New England. And then Sarah and I host that. So Sarah and I always do a mini set in the beginning, but we'll have bands. We've had some of the big New England area bands, like you're probably familiar with Rock Hearts. They've been coming on strong. Austin's band, and Austin's other band too, On the Trail, has been here as well. And then we play in our band, but the Bob and Sarah Amos band plays occasionally too. We back up sometimes the legendary Jim Rooney, who's a friend of mine and lives up here. If you don't know who Jim Rooney is, he's a legendary producer and folk bluegrass performer, Grammy-winning guy. And so sometimes we'll play some concerts with him as well. So we have the Bluegrass Night Concert Series. I also do a Coffee House Series, which is more kind of a singer-songwriter thing, more folk-related. And then I run a Bluegrass Jam at a local church up here. And that's really fun because it's very informal. But we get people that's coming to listen too. We usually have somewhere between 15 and 25 musicians who come. And it's a little bit of a herding cats kind of thing, but we get it really well organized. And everybody gets to sing a song and play breaks, and it's really a lot of fun. And so I get that side of what I do through that here on a regular basis. But yeah, it's big fun, and it's usually unexpected things happen, as you can imagine. So,
any particular ones stand out? I call them jamecdotes. Do you have any jamecdotes that stand out?
Well, I think actually the one I just told you about with 3 basses and getting them coordinated, just it was shocking to me that actually worked. Because I was really prepared to say, okay, let's just have one bass player and you switch out every song. I was prepared for that. And I thought, we'll just try this a few times. But those guys, they all synced in. And it was actually kind of awesome.
Yeah.
When you play 1/5, it's a lot easier.
Right. Don't get all fancy on us, Val.
Root 5 on the bass, guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as a jam leader, we have a lot of course, bluegrass jammers that listen, and some folks want to either start a jam or do lead jams. What's your top tip for a jam leader?
I think you have to have a good bedside manner, right? I mean, you have to be nice about it, but you need to be firm. I think that's the main thing, because once somebody takes control of it and lets people know what's going on, is just to be firm and clear about what's happening. It's a different thing than the Wernick class where you have a very specific group of people. So when we have 18 people, obviously that takes some coordination, right? So I think people at this jam are relaxed because they know Bob's going to help us know what to do. And then they get the pattern going. Like I'll have the mandolin players play a break and the fiddle players get up to the mic, encouraging them to get up close to the mic when they take a solo. Because it is a mic jam.
So you do have a mic. Okay.
We have 3, actually.
Okay.
And because there is audience there too. So it's like a hybrid of an open mic and a jam.
I see.
Making sure everybody gets a chance to be showcased. But I think being nice about it and being firm as a jam leader and making sure you give everybody a shot. That's probably the most important advice I can give. And because once you do take leadership, a firm leadership, they relax because they know they're not nervous about what they're supposed to do. And you have to have somebody designating the breaks, right? We do that in the Wernick method too. In this case, so it doesn't get too confusing. I mean, in the Wernick method, whoever's leading the song doles out the breaks and everything. In this case, in this big group, I'm doing that behind the person who's singing so they can just concentrate on singing their song. And then everybody knows they always look to me to see who's going next. So it's a little bit different. And that's mostly because of its size. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something I've run into in leading jams, because our jams can get up even sometimes up to 30 people. Let's say it this way. I have a very specific opinion about the best way to dole out the breaks. And it isn't looking up at the last moment and saying, who wants one? That's not the way of doling out the break.
No, you have to be organized. You almost have to be proactive about it and making sure that, And that's one of the things about doing it behind the scene while somebody else is singing, because I can actually look over, I'll point to the 2 fiddle players and tell them to come up so that they're ready to go. I'll look over at the mandolin player and point during the chorus, knowing you're next. So everybody kind of knows to look to me to know what to do in what order. Because we have, a lot of times we'll have a couple fiddle players. We have some people play lead guitar. We have a mandolin player or 2. We have sometimes a dobro player, a banjo player. Sometimes I'm the only banjo player there. I'd like to get more banjo players there. But then we also have some people who play bouzouki or octave mandolin, which is cool. They're more folk people, but they've been coming and taking bouzouki breaks, which is really fun.
Yeah.
And harmonica.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll have 7 groups of soloists to account for. Sometimes it's one person who plays that instrument, but sometimes it's a couple. So then what I'll usually do if I have a couple of mandolin players, sometimes they'll play individual breaks, but sometimes I'll have them play together.
Yeah. Well,
But
the mantra at my jams, and now I just say it before, during, and after pretty much anything, is it is not bluegrass law that every single person has to take a break on every
Right.
single song.
right.
Some people don't like taking the double breaks, though, or the group breaks. Have you encountered that?
Yeah. And sometimes that's the case. And I'd say it's 1/3 of that at our jams. Sometimes the fiddle players like to come up and play together.
Mm-hmm.
They like it, whether they're playing unison or whether they're going to goof around with a harmony. But for example, a lead guitar player, I'll usually have them come up by themselves, or the bouzouki player by themselves. It depends on the instrument. But yeah, I try to shake it up. So I'd say 2/3 of the breaks in our jams are solo breaks. Yeah.
And so sounds like in this particular jam that you say, I will dole out the breaks, and that makes things go smoother. But it also sounds, trying to picture the setup. If the singer is standing by a microphone, it's different than, let's say, if we're out at Riverside Park and we've got 30 people in a circle.
Well, yeah. And you can imagine, we've been there, right? At Silver Bay sometimes in the evening when you have a huge circle of people, 30 people in a circle, and everybody starts taking individual breaks. I mean, a song can take half an hour.
I know, it drives me crazy. If anybody from Brooklyn and New York is listening, it drives me crazy.
So that's where the sections come in sometimes. Yeah. And it's not perfect, but I mean, really, ideally, when that happens, the best thing that could happen is if you were to divide up into different smaller groups, right? If you have the space to do that, that's often, I think, more fun for players when they get to do that. But there is something just remarkably amazing about a huge group of people too. It's just musically not quite as satisfying, I think. But in our case, and it sounds like some of the cases you have, that just ends up being the thing. With our jam, we just have the one space. And so we do have this big collective, but we found a way to make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think part of what I've noticed is I think it's really important to take a look at what is valued in that moment. I will tell you one thing that happened, a story that happened. It's my jam or Riverside Park. And I say my jam, it's really me and Ron, my co-jam leader. And somebody came who decided at a certain point, it's a pretty big space in the park. So there's sort of another side. And the person who shall remain unnamed, without asking me, kind of grabbed a bunch of people and just went to the other side of the park. Kind of went like this and took a bunch of people. And I'm standing there like, what is happening right now? And I will tell you that the energy on my side was completely deflated. Now, they're a good player, and I probably would have wanted to play with them too. But first of all, if anybody's listening to this, do not do that. Do not take people from one jam and go start your own jam. Certainly take a moment and say to the jam leader, do you want to do this? The answer of which I would have said no. The reason is because what's valued in my jam is the community experience of everyone together. The musical quality is lower because you can't hear across you cannot hear a guitar player taking a break across a circle in a park by a highway. You cannot. Which is why it drives me crazy when people go around and have every single person take a break, because you can't hear it anyway. So if you set it up ahead of time to be like, today, we're going to split it up. You could go over there or you could stay here. And then
I think as a leader, you make it clear at the beginning about what the philosophy is at this particular jam. And of course, there's always going to be things that happen, but I think there's a difference between the breakout sessions like that, where you get people together and then you pair them up or group them up and send them off. But there is also something to be said for these bigger jams, because the people who are just beginning will learn a lot by watching the more advanced players play. And if the advanced players just go off and form their own jam, which ideally, that's a nicer thing for them to do from a musical standpoint, right? Yeah, they're going to enjoy that more. But that's not what that jam is about. So I think it has to be clear at the beginning what the goals of this particular jam are. And being the organizer and the leader, make that clear. But I understand. And I've been in those situations like you're talking about. I think the important thing is just to be really clear at the beginning if you're running one of these things about how this jam works.
Mhm.
I know in our big jam, it's difficult to make that work, but we do. And we found a way to make it work. That's one of the reasons why I started bringing a little PA and miking some of the things. So when a guitar player is playing up the neck, you can't hear that. You have 18 players, but if they're on a mic, you can. So that's a way to make it work. But it's always an adventure. So,
It is. So getting together with people, playing consistently, doing what you can to support the group dynamics, I think is the most important thing.
agree.
Well, Bob, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for your wisdom. And I am excited to see you again at the Silver Bay camp. And anyone hanging out in Upper Vermont should go and play with Bob.
But I would also add just that if people are curious about our music, if you look up on any of the major streaming platforms, be it Spotify or Apple Music or any of the others, look for Bob and Sarah Amos. That's our current music, and you'll find all of our stuff from the Ever Onward album there. And give us a listen.
Okay, that's great. And do you also have a website?
Yeah, it's just my name, bobamos.com.
There you
Yep.
go. Probably did that a long time ago.
I did it a long time ago, and I've kept it ever since.
That's all right. Well, thank you, Bob, for this time together, and we will see you in August.
Okay, Liz, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for listening. Again, my name is Liz Wolfe. Please subscribe to our podcast and follow us on our social media so you never miss an episode. You can find us online at bluegrassbrooklyn.com. Brooklyn is spelled BKLYN. See you around the jam circle.